Alright, so today we're going to be talking about one of my most requested topics, and that is, what if the S-Class heroes were to eat monster cells? So this is a pretty intriguing question, because we saw what happens when, base level humans were to eat these things. I mean, the results were pretty awesome, so naturally we go to think oh, well, what would happen if the most powerful humans were to eat these things? And they are, of course, naturally the S-Class heroes. So I'm going to go as far into this topic as I really can without getting too arbitrary, that is. Because with most subjects that I talk about, it's very subjective and it's kind of difficult to definitively say what would happen if each individual S-Class were to eat these things, what would they look like, and of course how powerful they would become. The most important thing that you want to hear about, and I'm going to talk about that a lot, of course. But first of all, we have to talk about what happens if you eat a monster cell in the first place. So the process simply transforms abilities already possessed by the original individual with no prospect of further growth. So the way that I see this happening is that when you eat a monster cell, it makes you as powerful as you can become. After that point, you need to go through a Zenkai boost. Other than that, that's as powerful as you're going to become. So I kind of liken this to old Kai's potential unlock ability from Dragon Ball, what he does to Gohan in the Buu Saga. We saw that he removed that initial cap that Gohan had, and it made him as powerful as he was supposed to be, but then Gohan was able to go further above that, obviously. But with the monster cells, they're putting a new cap on you, but you're at your ceiling with no potential to go further. So aside from the significant power boost that you receive from this, you also just straight up transform into a monster as advertised, both aesthetically and mentally. You basically just become a psychopath instantly. You lose your humanity, one of the recurring themes in the series. Now, not all psychopathy is created equal with this transformation, because we saw with Chose, he was a little more he was more intelligent, but just became straight up unredeemably evil, no morals whatsoever to speak of. But then when we saw powerful guys like Koketsu, he kind of somewhat still had morality to him. Yeah, he was definitely evil, but there is a clear line between how evil he was and how evil guys like Bakuzan and Chose were. So I think most of the S-Class heroes would probably be closer to Koketsu in their temperament if they were to eat the monster cells. They wouldn't just be full-blown unredeemably evil the way that Chose is, or at least most of them. Maybe guys like Tank Top Master and dare I even say Metal Bat would probably be closer to unredeemably evil rather than I would say Child Emperor. And it's not just so much of an intelligence thing, but maybe more so based on their inherent capacity for justice. So now let's go into the transformation aspect of this thing. So since it builds on the inherent talents of the original subject, it basically just transforms that. Although, like I said, it's really difficult to say what they would become, because we saw with Chose, he became a pretty aesthetically appealing monster, and we really wouldn't guess that he became like that. As we're with Hakumichi, we saw that his hair was kind of bear ears, so he became a bear monster. That makes sense. And Volton, he became an electric monster, so that made sense. But it's a little more ambiguous further down the line, especially with the more powerful guys. So what would happen if the S-Class heroes were to take these? Well, I can't go through every single one because it's already difficult to just guess what would happen, but I would say the easiest ones to guess are Darkshine, Watchdog Man, Metal Bat, and Tatsumaki. So Watchdog Man, obviously his suit would morph with him, and he would become this monsterized, grotesque dog thing, human beast hybrid. And then Darkshine, he would definitely get bigger and more muscular, and then would probably look something like Abomination from Marvel, just taking a guess. And I always assumed that Tatsumaki's dress that she has would probably become a part of her, and the little flappies that she has, it would be more Ursula from The Little Mermaid. It would become monster tentacles or something like that. And then Metal Bat would probably become a Cronenberg-esque, just hideous monstrosity with a huge metal arm bat thing. He would actually probably look pretty cool. And then Genos, so he's already kind of monstery in his form, but since we're on him, I want to go into the anomalies that we have in the S-Class, and that's of course him and Drive Knight. So Drive Knight, we still don't know what he is. We don't know if he's a cyborg, or we don't know if he's fully AI robotic. So the jury's out on him. But for Genos, we know that he can eat food, but he only really has his face, brain. Would the monster cells transform him? I mean, maybe his like face and brain, but other than that, it really wouldn't get the benefit of it biologically changing his entire body. It's difficult to say for him, but I would say that Genos, it probably wouldn't help him too much. It would just make him psychotic, I guess. So now let's get into how strong they would become. And also remember that this is just going to push them to what their inherent potential, I suppose, is without having to go into like Zenkai boost territory. So it's also difficult to say. So we're going to have to start with Rosie, of all people. So Rosie was the first one to eat a monster cell, and I guess as a complete human, maybe he was like low wolf or somewhere around there, maybe even below wolf, not really sure. But after he ate the monster cell, he got huge and muscular and definitely had superhuman strength, probably more powerful than a bear, given if we're going back to the Child Emperor Okami Mask scale, because he threw that guy Dave pretty far. So maybe Rosie went from low, below wolf level to like a low to mid tiger. So I guess that's like the gauge that we can go off of. Now let's, expand upon that, because he was easily killed by human Chose, just snapped up real quick. And human Chose, we never really get a good estimate of it. This is like his most defining feat. So given that he's able to take out a perceived low mid tiger, what monster Rosie could be, maybe Chose is like B or A class hero, probably like A class level, somewhere around there. Probably not like high A class, but maybe, it's really subjective with him, but I think A class is probably a good foundation for him. So after Chose ate the monster cell, he definitely went to demon territory. Now, I don't really think he was like a high demon. He was more so like a mid demon, considering that he didn't really push Suiryu that much, and Suiryu is more so definitively high demon, like above demon territory. So if we're going from like A class, like high tiger, maybe above tiger, and going to like mid demon. So we're kind of staying in the same growth range that we saw with Rosie, but we also have to remember that the stronger the human originally is becomes stronger as a monster once they eat the cell. So like Chose, obviously stronger than Rosie, so probably got more of a significant boost. But then if we go to like probably the best example, and that is Goketsu. So Goketsu in his monster form is definitely a high dragon, in my opinion, for sure, pretty much definitively. So that means that as a human, maybe he was S-class level, because he did win the very first Super Fight tournament, which is implied to be the biggest and best, although like Silver Fang didn't compete in it, so take that for what you will. But it did have a lot of hype on it, and given that he became a high dragon, we just have to assume that he was at the base, like close to, if not on the S-class level. So maybe he was like as strong as like, I don't know, Tank Top Master or Puri Puri Prisoner or something like that. So I'm assuming that that's the gauge and the base that we can go off of. So like if Tank Top were to eat a cell, given that he's like probably a high demon right now, he would probably go to mid dragon, maybe even high dragon, but somewhere around there. Same goes for Puri Puri Prisoner. He's probably like low dragon right now, so he would probably go to, for sure, high dragon. But let's go into like the real juicy ones. Like, what if Darkshine were to eat a monster cell? So we already talked about like what he would look like, but because he's already, in my opinion, definitively a high dragon, I think he's obviously going to above dragon in power at that point. Saying that he would become God is a little too much, because like that would mean that he has the potential to just become as powerful as a disaster level God without achieving a Zenkai boost, and I don't think that's the case. That would be way too generous for him. But we can make an argument for, let's say, Tatsumaki, because she's already an above dragon. And we know that, in theory, espers can benefit from monsterification through the monster cells, because Jigan is kind of implied to have eaten a monster cell. It's never definitively said, but it's said that he's gone through, like, experiments from Giro Giro. So whatever that means, I mean, we know that he was implanted with the eyes of espers to supplement his power. But how did he become a monster in the first place? Was it a monster cell? Was it something else? It doesn't matter, but I'm just going to assume that this can affect her esper abilities, basically increasing her power. So would that send her to God level? Maybe. I mean, it can be argued that she could reach there. or we can just get real like pedantic with it, and we could say that she would maybe go from like low above dragon to high above dragon. Something that we haven't really touched on too much on the channel yet, but maybe this could alter that factor for her, and she would just bump up the scale more and more, or she's just, you know, like a full-blown disaster level god. But that's pretty much it for the video. I just wanted to lay the foundation and the blueprints for you, and maybe you could just come up with the answer for yourself for each individual hero that you basically wanted to analyze if they were to eat a monster cell. So let me know what you think about this one, and just give me your predictions in the comments, like what if Pig God ate a monster cell or something like that, you know, whatever. Or it may be Drive Knight or Genos. What do you think would happen with them? But if you like the video, guys, just please give it a like. Also, I have a Patreon, gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.